Oh my god. My skin looks awful. Oh well. I don't know if I'm gonna post this or not, but I feel like I have to rant, and everybody's ranting about this, but like, so I'm just gonna get my licks in too. Obviously, I feel like the West is just fucking traumatized by what went down in this Splat World series. Like, everybody's scrambling to just post their hot takes and latch on to whatever take they see from any given person they personally consider to be an authority, putting their own hot takes out there, shitting on top level in the West, etc., etc. I honestly think that Jared made a really solid video about the struggle of the West versus largely Japan, and why that that rift sort of exists. If you ask me, a lot of my opinions are very much so in line with his. I think the issue is that our top level is very small. And I think that is a function of the fact that Splatoon is just not as popular in the West as it is in the East. There are literally sponsored players, I'm pretty sure, in the East. People who are paid to play this game. If you've ever been to Nintendo Japan, when you go there, the first thing you see is this huge life-sized inkling in the middle of everything. Like, you would not see that in the United States, I feel. Well, I've never been to San Francisco, but like, I feel like it's very genuinely largely popular over there. So they just have like thousands of like players, and their top level is like hundreds of players. You know what I mean? And I feel like literally all of our top level is like in one server, essentially playing musical chairs in pickups 90% of the time. And that's just kind of what we have to do, because the interest in this game is kind of so small. And then on top of that, resources. Like, in a perfect world, we would just have to kind of integrate into Japan's scene so that we have our players have, you know, a more like enriched sense of different play styles and different skill levels and stuff like that. I just feel like being contained within ourselves, it's a little bit impossible, only because our scene is too small, right? However, now I feel like the actual problem is not like fixing this problem, and people's fixes to the problem are like a huger issue. Firstly, I feel like there's a lot of discussion about who to listen to and who not to listen to. Oh, this person's top level. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a lower level player. Oh, I've seen a lot of takes and a lot of like posts that are like people don't truly understand the rift, the sheer volume of difference that the game is for top players versus lower level players. And I feel like this take tends to not, like, I feel like this is a very nuanced take, but I feel like people who are making it are largely saying that low levels are or people who are not top level are airing their opinions, and they shouldn't, because they don't truly get the game. And I feel like this is something we really need to treat with a little bit more nuance than we do now. I think largely as a community, sure, it is extremely true that top level players have a different understanding, and some may say a deeper understanding of the game than a lot of people who don't quite know the you know, the inner workings of the game as intimately. However, if you are a lower level player who watches a lot of top level, who has friends that are in top level, who, you know, like really listens and like studies a lot of this information on the game, I feel like largely your opinion still doesn't count, because you're just not a top level player, so nobody has respect for you. So quite frankly, you should shut up. And I feel like that is something we maybe need to re-examine. I do quite, especially with all of this stuff blowing up, I think that there are a lot of people who, like, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I do think that there are a lot of people who are not super qualified to even really, people who quite frankly just don't intimately know what's going on, who are just like firing off takes, who are just like saying things about how, oh, well, it's because our top level, they just don't know how to experiment, which I don't agree with. I think that there's, especially lately, been a lot of experimentation, more so than maybe in the past, for our top level scene. I think that's sort of being worked on, and I don't think that's the issue. But yeah, I do think that there are people that are very ignorant that are just like sort of saying whatever, just because, you know, they have a blue sky profile and they can. But I think to act as though, well, you guys just don't understand. There's just how different the game is for top level. You just like can't possibly understand. It's like, first of all, I think we need to acknowledge that while we have to respect the opinions of top players because they have an understanding that most people don't necessarily have of the game, being a top level player does not make you right. Like, let's say, for example, Chara is someone who is very tuned into the like meta of the game. If Chara makes a tier list of the game in its current state and puts Clash Blaster in X, I, as a lower level player, can look at that and say, that's not right. Like, I don't think that's right. And I feel like, even though I would objectively be correct that Clash Blaster is not an X tier weapon, if Chara says that it is, as a top level player, and this is no hate on Chara, because I think Chara is extremely reasonable and works really hard and has a really strong understanding of the game. But I think that similarly, Kyo can look at the same list and be like, well, I disagree. Because like, just because he's a top level player doesn't necessarily mean that he's right. Ultimately, he's expressing his opinions. All top level players are. They're expressing their opinions. And quite frankly, and I don't think a lot of people will agree with me, but I'm going to say it, just because a bunch of top level players agree on something also doesn't mean it's correct. It doesn't. Like, it may seem like, oh, well, this is like a bunch of people. First of all, in science, sometimes a lot of scientists can all agree about something, and then they find, oops, a mistake was made. We were all wrong. How about think about this? Was it IPL that made that decision momentarily to remove the whole screen thing, that they were like, oh, we're not gonna have it where you're allowed to signal that you don't like screen anymore. Instead, you'll just have to DM them ahead of time. And there was a lot of backlash from the community. IPL has a lot of skilled TOs who have been in the game forever. And these skilled TOs, I don't know what happened behind closed doors. Maybe some people disagreed, but a bunch of them got together, probably had a chat about this issue, and they all collectively agreed, oh, actually, we should remove the ability to just ban screen. And like, clearly that decision was like wrong. Like, everybody, there was a lot of backlash from the community, and a lot of people were like, that's crazy that you would do that, and they made like a wrong call. So even if you have people that are experienced who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about, and they all get together and they agree on something, that thing can still be wrong. But I feel as though, like, as long as, quite frankly, you just need one top player to say one thing in particular, and then that word is law, and if you disagree with that, then it's like, well, you just don't get it because you're a top level, you're a low level player, and low level players can't possibly know what they're talking about. When it's like, if Chara were to say, oh, Clash Blaster is an X level weapon, and quite frankly, and here's the other thing, our top level is very small, comparatively, you know what I mean? A lot of these people are friends, a lot of these people have played with each other, so it's also not surprising that a lot of these people would have the same mindset, you know what I mean? And so, like, similarly, everybody in the West is like, oh, like, VAC is bad or whatever, but VAC is a little bit more popular in Japan, so is it objectively bad? I don't know. You know what I mean? So I feel like if everyone in X level were to say Clash as it is right now is an X tier weapon, and I said, no, it's not, I would be right. But yet, if that were the case, would people be saying, well, Sasi's right, you, Kyo, you, Chara, you, like, No. People, I don't think that that's what the sentiment would be, and I think that's something we have to examine. Now, on the other hand, I do think that sometimes there are things that are relevant only to top level that are not relevant to levels that are below top level, and I think that people need to understand that as well. Like, I was having a conversation with my friend, and they were saying, oh, well, you know what, I don't like the idea that people are saying that we have to go to Japan in order to like learn more and diversify our resources and our playstyles. And I was like, well, who's we? Like, you're saying we, and you're like, oh, I think just like we have more resources. And I'm like, respectfully, you have more resources in the West. If you want to get better, there are teams that are better than you that you can practice against. You know what I mean? When you're a mid-level player, you can go up against high-level players. You can go against top-level players. You're a low-level player. You have access and resources to people who are better than you. No one is telling, quite frankly, anyone below top level that they should be scrimming Japan. All of this conversation about what does the West have to do to catch up with the East, it is what does Western top level have to do to catch up with the East. Like, quite frankly, none of this conversation is relevant to people who are below top level. It's just kind of not. Like, I mean, if you want to make it your business to scrim with Japanese teams when you're low level, I guess you can, but like, why would you? Because the whole reason this is a problem to begin with is because, like, I feel like integrating our community into Japan is tough. Like, we're saying this, but it's easier said than done. Their time zones are so different from ours, so finding times to play is extremely difficult if you're in Europe or, you know, North America. I think there's also an issue of language barrier. There's a lot of people in the Western scene who don't know how to read or speak Japanese. Like, there's all of these barriers that are stopping our top level from really reaping a lot of the benefits from kind of commingling with Japan. So I don't understand why anyone below top level would bother with that when they can just get better by playing people here. Anyways, the whole point of that is to say that I think that sometimes people are conflating top level issues with community issues, and sometimes those are community issues and sometimes they're not. Like, for example, very famously, I believe this whole idea of playing zones only, I don't agree with it. And I feel like the pushback I get is like, well, you're a low level player. Top level play, true top level. Top levels, you know, they all agree that zones is the best mode, so we shouldn't be playing other modes because top levels don't like playing those modes. And I don't agree with that. And I feel like when I say, no, I don't think that we need, like, I don't think that tourneys should default to zones only, they're like, oh no, but like, it shouldn't be zones only for low levels. And it's like, I'm not talking about low levels. I'm talking about top level. I don't think that top level should be zones only. I think it's ridiculous to act as though zones is the only one that shows off your talent as a team. And I think that just because Japan does it doesn't make it right. My thing about that, the reason why I think top level should not be playing zones only is, quite frankly, like, what is the pinnacle? Like, I feel like literally on paper, objectively, the thing that you win that makes everyone is Worlds. Like Nintendo Worlds. And Nintendo Worlds is not zones only. It's not. And now someone could argue, yeah, but Nintendo Worlds also has turf. But like, all those turf games you have to play equal 1 point. So even Nintendo themselves, knowing that turf is a non-competitive mode, you can win 3 turf games and it would be the same as if you won 1 tower game. So Nintendo themselves are saying this is like a non-competitive mode. It's not that important. But zones is treated with the... Does Rainmaker suck? Yes. It sucks. It's got its problems. It's stally and it's bad, and I get that. But, like, do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense? I feel as though, like, you know, in this conversation, I think people are talking about the community at large, and I think that's valid. But there are some times where you say, like, very respectfully, this maybe has nothing to do with you, as a person who is not top player. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that those people are not allowed to formulate their own opinions, or that because they're not top players, they just don't know what they're talking about. And conversely, that also means that just because you are a top player does not know that you know what you're talking about necessarily. Not that you don't know what you're talking about, but that doesn't make you correct. Just because someone that you consider to be the best of the best in the Western scene says, this is what we need to improve. I feel like literally I've seen so many tweets of everyone saying, oh, like they heard whichever top player they like, they heard their take, and now despite the fact that, quite frankly, some of these takes to me are destructive of the community at large and of top level, I think that some of them are counterintuitive. I think that some of them are missing the forest for the trees, and I think some of them will do more harm than good and also waste a lot of our time. But because of who it's coming from, there are people of lower levels that are just parroting these points and are saying, oh, well, this is the way to fix Western top level. These are the facts. When quite frankly, it's just an opinion. Like, top level players are mortal men just as we are. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to rant because we have to recognize that not all people, it's not as though people should not and are not allowed to have an opinion if they're not top level about top level issues. I think that there are people who are genuinely plugged in enough, who listen and watch enough to have educated, like, information on these things. And so I think we need to understand, like, for example, people know that my team, when we're on Inkblot, like, I play Clash, right? And I play Clash not because I think it's a good weapon, but because I know at my level of play, I can get away with playing it, to be honest, because I'm a low level player. So, like, I'm fully aware that, like, a weapon like Clash Blaster, you cannot get away with playing something with such a slow kill time at higher levels of play. You know what I mean? I'm aware of that, but at the same time, if it were to be put in X by top level players, I'd say that's incorrect based on, like, just what I know about the game. It doesn't matter what or who says it. I would just feel as though that's objectively wrong. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, just because someone's low level doesn't mean they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Just because someone's high level doesn't mean they do know what the fuck they're talking about. Top level people are mortal men. Their opinions are just those opinions. They are, of course, more educated and in a place where, you know, their opinions hold more weight. But an opinion being more weighty doesn't make it necessarily correct. When people are talking specifically about top level, that doesn't always disseminate to the rest of the community. It's not necessarily relevant to absolutely everyone. But, you know, I think also sometimes that starts to trickle down. You know what I mean? What's happening at top level? I think just this whole conversation demands a lot more nuance than people are willing to give it. And that's what's really annoying me at the end of the day.